When Karoline Leavitt, the young White House press secretary, gave up her first-class seat to an elderly veteran, no one expected a profound connection to unfold right on the flight. And what happened next left every passenger stunned into silence. Karoline had boarded the flight to Newark dressed in a sharp navy blazer, scrolling through notes on her phone, earbuds in as she listened to a podcast, her posture calm and focused. Passengers in first class whispered and stole glances, recognizing her from press briefings and interviews, but she kept to herself, trying to stay centered. The shift came when an older man entered the economy cabin, walking slowly with a slight tremble in his hands, wearing a worn military jacket with a purple heart pin peeking from the chest, and carrying a battered leather bag. He sat next to a middle-aged journalist who immediately complained aloud about being crowded, his frustration sharp enough to draw attention across the cabin. The veteran apologized quietly, shrinking into his seat, but the journalist continued, telling him he should have taken a bus, his tone dripping with disdain. A flight attendant tried to de-escalate, but it was clear the situation was spiraling. From first class, Karoline watched, her eyes narrowing as she saw the elderly man slump further in his seat, embarrassed and powerless, while a man beside him kept raising his voice. She didn't wait. She pressed the call button, and when the attendant arrived, Karoline said with steady resolve that she wanted to switch seats with the veteran. Her voice was calm, commanding, and left no room for hesitation. When asked if she was sure, she nodded and said the man deserved it more than she did. Passengers murmured, some surprised, others moved. Karoline stood, grabbed her bag, and walked toward economy as the attendant approached the veteran to inform him of the switch. The old man blinked in disbelief, asking if she was sure, and when Karoline extended her hand and thanked him for his service, his doubt dissolved into gratitude. She told him plainly that the seat was his, and that simple kindness echoed through the plane. As he settled into first class, the veteran's old hands rested on the plush leather armrests, and his eyes, clouded by age, stared out the window, reflecting a glimmer of memories long buried. The woman beside him asked if he was okay, and when she saw the Purple Heart pin, she asked if he had served. He nodded and slowly began to speak, his voice soft but steady. He told her coming home from the Gulf War, wounded and lost, with no family and no direction, wandering New Hampshire with nothing but the leather bag still by his side. He said he once sat outside a diner, unsure if he'd see another day, when a man approached him and asked if he was okay. That man, he explained, didn't just give him money, but sat beside him, listened, paid for a motel, and found him a job at a nearby lumber mill. When the woman asked who would do that, the veteran looked toward economy and said it was a grandfather of the woman who gave up her seat. Murmurs spread as people pieced it together. Karoline Leavitt's grandfather had once helped him reclaim his life. He said he'd never forgotten the man's face or his voice, and that today, Karoline's gesture felt like a circle closing. In economy, Karoline sat quietly beside the now silent journalist, scrolling through her phone, unaware of the story being told in first class until the young flight attendant returned and knelt beside her. She softly told Karoline what the veteran had said, how her grandfather had saved him decades ago, and how this moment felt like destiny. Karoline blinked, slowly lowering her phone, her sharp eyes narrowing as the pieces began to fall into place, memory flickering behind her gaze. She didn't speak at first. She just breathed, steady and thoughtful, as if recognizing that what she thought was a simple act of decency had become something far greater. "Grandfather," she murmured so soft it was almost inaudible. The attendant nodded, her eyes brightening, as she said, "Your grandfather changed his life, and now you reminded him of that kindness." Leavitt sat still, her breathing slowing. She remembered her mom telling vague stories about her grandfather, a stern but devoted man, always out on weekends helping someone. As her mom put it, she'd never pressed for details, never thought those stories were so real. She looked up, her gaze meeting the attendant's, and asked, "Did he say my grandfather's name?" Her voice slightly shaky. The attendant shook her head no, but he said he'd never forget that face or voice. Leavitt nodded, slowly, a mix of pride and shock swelling in her chest. She gave a faint smile, whispering, "I didn't know. I really didn't." The attendant smiled back, standing up, and said, "I think you'd be glad you do now." Then turned away, leaving Leavitt with her swirling thoughts. She sat there, her gaze drifting forward to where the veteran was, and a memory flashed. of her as a kid sitting on her grandma's old couch, listening to her grandfather talk about people who need help. She thought it was just old man talk. Now it's sharpened into focus like a puzzle piece, clicking into place. Her heart beat faster, not from work pressure, but from feeling tied to something bigger than herself. Meanwhile, in first class, the veteran still sat his hand, stroking the leather bag. The curly-haired woman beside him whispered to the man in the checkered shirt, "We've got to tell her." But he shook his head. "Hold on, I think he'll want to do it himself." And sure enough, the veteran stood. He moved slowly down the aisle, steadying himself on the seats, his eyes fixed on economy. With resolve, passengers turned to watch, murmurs rising like waves. "Where is he going?" a young woman whispered to her friend. When he reached Leavitt's row, she looked up, their eyes meeting. He stopped and extended his hand, his voice low, but firm. "Miss Leavitt, I gotta thank you." Leavitt stood instantly despite the tight space and took his hand. The grip was warm and steady. "No need," she said gently. "I'm the one thanking you for your service." He shook his head, his eyes glistening. "Not just for the seat, you don't know it, but your family changed my life. Your grandfather in New Hampshire. He saved me when I had nothing. He sat with me, listened, gave me a chance. And today you brought it all back." Leavitt blinked, rapidly holding back the rush of emotion. "I just heard the attendant tell me," she said, her voice catching. "I didn't know he'd done that." He smiled, a wrinkled but warm smile. "He was a special man. And so, you didn't just give me a seat, you showed me that kindness still lives, still strong. You closed a circle I thought was lost forever." Nearby passengers fell silent, hanging on every word. Mom, holding her toddler, wiped her eyes. An older man nodded, muttering to his wife, "Unbelievable." Leavitt squeezed his hand tighter. "Thank you for telling me," she said, her voice shaky, but sincere. "I'm glad to carry that on." He nodded, his eyes red. "You've done more than that. You're his pride." Applause started, a few hands at first, then spreading to the cabin. A kid clapped along with his mom, giggling. It wasn't loud, but deep like a shared acknowledgement. Leavitt smiled awkwardly, and the veteran bowed his head, clearly touched. He let go of her hand, saying softly, "Thank you again." Then he turned back to first class, a step slow but sure. Leavitt sat down, her gaze lingering where he'd gone. The applause faded, but a warm stillness hung in the air, an unspoken bond between passengers. She picked up her phone, her fingers brushing the screen, but her mind wasn't on work notes anymore. Instead, she thought her grandfather, the man she'd only known through her mom's vague stories, now vivid to the veteran's words. In first class, the veteran settled back into his seat, hands gripping the old leather bag. The curly-haired woman beside him smiled at him, whispering, "You moved everyone." He nodded, his gaze distant. "Not me," he said softly. He glanced back toward where Leavitt sat, a faint smile crossing his weathered face. The young attendant with a high ponytail passed by, bringing him another glass of water. "She's really something." Hush, she asked, her voice gentle. He nodded, saying nothing more, but his eyes said it all, deep gratitude. As the plane touched down, tires skimming the runway with a light jolt, passengers stirred, preparing to disembark. The intercom crackled, the pilot's warm voice filling the air. "Welcome to Newark. Thanks for flying with us." The cabin door opened and cool air rushed, and passengers stood grabbing bags. But something was different. No one rushed like usual. They glanced at each other, smiling, as if they just shared something bigger than a routine flight. Leavitt stood stretching in the cramped space, then grabbed her bag from overhead. The journalist next to her, the one who griped, gave her a final glance, muttering, "You surprise me." Leavitt turned, offering a faint smile. "Sometimes you just do what's right." He nodded, saying nothing more, than hurried off like he wanted to dodge others' eyes. Leavitt stepped into the aisle, and right away a young mom with a toddler approached. "Miss Leavitt, thank you," she said, her voice shaky. "What you did, it's amazing." Leavitt nodded, gentle. "I just did what felt necessary." Other passengers began approaching. An older man with salt and pepper hair patted her shoulder lightly. "You're a pride to this country." A young girl, holding her phone, laughed loudly. "I got it all on video, posting it to X right now." Leavitt smiled awkwardly, raising a hand to stop her. "No need, really." But the girl just winked and darted off, her fingers flying across the screen. As Leavitt moved toward the exit, she spotted the veteran ahead, walking slowly with his leather bag slung over his shoulder. He paused near the gate, as if waiting. She stepped up beside him. "You okay?" she asked, her voice warm. He turned, eyes glistening. "Thanks to you, I'm better than ever," he said, his voice low but firm. He extended his hand again, and Leavitt took it, the grip warm like an unspoken promise. He said slowly, "I never thought I'd be thanked like this, not for what I did in the war, but for what I survived to see today." Leavitt smiled, her eyes flickering with emotion. "You deserve it," she said, "and I'm so glad I met you." He nodded, then said softly, like a final piece of advice, "Don't let the world harden you, young lady. You've got a heart your grandfather will be proud of." Leavitt blinked, quickly hiding her feelings. "I won't," she promised, her voice steady. He smiled, nodded one last time, and walked off, his figure blending into the crowd. Leaving the gate, Leavitt stood there for a moment, watching him go, a strange yet warm feeling rising in her chest. Meanwhile, passengers began sharing the story. The young girl posted her video on X with the caption, "Karoline Leavitt gave up her first-class seat for a veteran. And you won't believe what happened next." Another man, carrying a suitcase, told his wife, "I've got to tell the guys at work about this." A little boy tugged his mom's hand, asking Mom, "Is she a superhero?" His mom laughed. "Not quite, but she did something superhero." But when Leavitt reached the baggage claim, a few people still came to thank her. An older man in a baseball cap said, "Thanks for reminding us about kindness." Leavitt not humble. "I just did a small thing." But in their eyes, it wasn't small. The veteran stood nearby, waiting for his bag, glancing at her one last time. Before leaving, he raised a hand in a simple but meaningful salute. Leavitt waved back, smiling as Karoline Leavitt stepped out of the airport. The cool air wrapped around her, but her mind stayed warm from what had happened on the flight. She pulled up the collar of her navy blazer bag in hand and headed toward the waiting car. Her phone buzzed nonstop in her pocket. X notifications, texts, emails. But she didn't check it, yet she wanted to hold on to this moment a little longer. Connection to her grandfather through the veteran story still lingering in her heart. But the digital world waits for no one, and the flight story had already begun spreading like wildfire. Back a few rows in the baggage claim, the young girl who'd filmed had posted her clip on X with the caption, "Karoline Leavitt gave up her first-class seat for a veteran. And you won't believe what happened next. Hashtag kindness matters. Hashtag America." First, a 3-minute video captured Leavitt switching seats, the heartfelt talk with a veteran, and the applause rippling through the cabin. Within 15 minutes, it had over 500 retweets and thousands of likes. Comments flooded in. One wrote, "This is why back Trump people like Leavitt actually care." Another added, "Gen Z doing politics like this is peak." But not everyone cheered an opposing account with a rainbow flag avatar commented, "Just a cheap PR stunt. She knew she was being filmed." Someone shot back, "She didn't know. Watch the video. It's real." The debate erupted, sparking hundreds more comments. From support to skepticism, the video kept spreading, hitting 10,000 views in under an hour. Other passengers posted photos of veteran walking down the aisle, Leavitt smiling as she shook his hand with hashtags like Karoline Leavitt and veteran respect. Leavitt slid into the car, finally pulling out her phone. The screen lit up with dozens of alerts. She scrolled, eyes narrowing as she saw the girl's video. She watched it, quickly hearing the veteran's voice again, "Your family changed my life." She paused to faint, smile crossing her lips, then scrolled to the comments. The polarization didn't surprise her. She'd seen it plenty as Trump's national press secretary. But the number of people moved by the story made her pause. One wrote, "I cried watching this. Thank you, Karoline, for honoring vets." Another, "This is the America I love." She thought for a moment, then opened X, fingers tapping fast. She posted, "Just the right thing to do. Thank you to our veterans for our freedom. Small acts can make big change. Keep spreading kindness." And in Gen Z style, she added a fist bump emoji and hashtag MAGA. The post went live and notifications poured in instantly. Her followers, over 700,000 on X, retweeted it fast, elevating the story. Further, a big verified account commented, "Karoline Leavitt just proved why she's a star in Trump's admin. Kindness plus strength equals real leadership." Meanwhile, news outlets jumped and a Fox News headline popped up, "White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt gives up first class seat for veteran." The story behind will amaze you. The article cited a video and passenger accounts praising Leavitt as a symbol of compassion in politics. But soon after, an opposing site ran Leavitt's move genuine kindness or political ploy. It questioned her motives, suggesting she did it to polish Trump's admin. After recent controversies, Leavitt scrolled through the articles. In the car, her expression calm. She was used to skepticism. It came with the job. But she didn't dwell on her phone. Buzz again, a text from her husband, "You're all over the internet. Everyone's freaking out about the flight." She replied, "Just a seat, babe, but I'm glad it touched people." He sent a heart emoji, and she smiled, slipping the phone back into her